will, if we don't have a chairman or a vice chairman, I'm Pam Merlo, I'm the secretary. I will do a roll call vote. Augie Fernandez.
Here.
Bart Kahn.
Here.
William Lawson.
Here.
Darryl Lewandowski.
Here.
TJ McLaughlin. Here. Pam Merlo. Here. Daniel Bergari.
Here.
Okay, everyone is present. Okay. Next on the list. See, we have election of officers. Do we approve the agenda before we do the election of officers? Is that backwards? Okay. So if we're going to, I move that we adjust the agenda to approve the agenda before we do the election of officers.
A second.
I'm also the secretary, so hold on. Okay, now we will move to our election of officers.
You want to make sure you take a vote.
Oh, that's, I'm sorry. All those in favor of approving the agenda with the adjustment of moving number 3 down to number 4, so the election of officers is number 4 and approval of agenda is number 3, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous, voice vote. Okay. Now we will start with the election of officers.
Approve agenda.
We didn't do one.
No, we just approved moving it.
Oh,
Oh,
that's right.
okay, I'm sorry, brand
Doing a
new.
fine job, Pam.
That's okay.
Okay.
So nothing's broke yet.
I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Second that motion.
Okay. Another voice vote, right?
Yeah.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Okay. Now do we move to the election of officers? Okay.
I'd like to nominate Pam Merlo for chairperson.
I second it.
Ms. Darrow? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there, we are going to vote, we're going to do each one separately. Ann has provided us a ballot. Are there any other nominations for chairperson?
Oh, no.
Okay, just throwing your hat in the ring, okay. So,
Were there any other nominations, Madam Chair?
there were no other nominations?
I move that the board, by unanimous acclamation, elect Pam Merlo as chairman.
I'll second that.
Thank you all for your patience. Okay. We still vote on it even afterwards?
Yeah, yeah. We got to vote on it.
Okay.
Okay, you made a motion, I second.
I'm going to hand them to the center. But if there's only one nominee, you can vote.
We don't need to vote.
Voice vote.
Right.
You're it, Pam.
So we're done.
You're done.
No, we have
still
Oh, voice
have
vote?
to cast the vote on that.
Okay,
But, I'm sorry, apologize for bad language. You still have to vote on the motion. It's a motion that you should vote on. But because there's only one candidate, you don't need to do it by ballot.
it could just be a voice.
It can be a
vote.
voice vote. If there's more than one candidate for an office, then you'll need to do it by ballot and count the ballots out.
Okay. Thank you.
William started it, Dean seconded.
So now it's motion, discussion on the motion and the vote on the motion.
Okay. All those in favor of Pam Merlo being chairman, say, by acclamation, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, Pam Merlo is it. Lucky devil. All righty. Our next office position is the vice secretary.
Thanks, Chair.
Vice chairperson, I'm sorry. I would like to nominate Daniel Vergara as vice chairperson.
I'll second.
Any other nominations? Okay. Oh, yes.
Madam Chair, I move that the board elect by unanimous acclamation the aforementioned gentleman as vice chair.
Okay.
Second.
Augie second?
Yep.
So now I move that we accept the nomination of Daniel Vergari as vice chairman by acclamation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Unanimous again. Secretary. Everybody's favorite. Any nominations? Anyone throwing their hat in the ring? Are you ignoring me, Augie?
I was talking to my colleague, he was shaking his head, no, strength.
Would any of our new members like to volunteer?
Well, seeing that there's such zeal for this position, I'll volunteer.
I second that.
No hesitation on the second.
Yeah, that was a quick second.
It's not that bad. It's not the sign.
Who seconded, Daryl? Okay. Bill? do you wanna jump in?
I move that the board, Madam Chair, elect by unanimous acclamation Augie Fernandez as secretary of the board.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor of Augie Fernandez as secretary by unanimous acclamation, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Another lucky contestant. Okay. Zoning Board of Appeals representative.
May I throw my hat in the ring for that?
Oh, absolutely.
I'll second.
Okay.
Make a motion that Daryl be the
Okay.
zoning zoning board of appeals representative.
I'll second.
Any other nominations?
Madam Chair, I move that the board elect by unanimous acclamation Mr. Darrell Lewandowski, representative to the zoning board of appeals.
Thank you.
I second that.
Got an awesome process here. Those in favor of Darrell Lewandowski being the zoning board of appeals representative by unanimous acclamation, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So do we close that?
Yeah, we're all set.
We're all set with it, I can just move on?
Public comment now.
Okay. Next on the agenda, we have public comment. We have a large public here today, that's good. Does anyone have any comments? And if you do, please state your name and come forward.
Great, thank you. And is there a time limit for comments, or?
It's generally 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Cindy Klotz. I'm the secretary for the Homeowners Association, the Country Club Village Homeowners Association. We are directly across the street from where this development would be, so we have some concerns with this development. So our development starts on the corner of Ann Arbor Road and Napier, and all of our lots are an acre lot. We're concerned a number of things with this. One is traffic. Right now, it looks like you are going to have 3 openings onto Napier Road. Those directly cross the 2 openings for Country Club Village 4 and 5, as well as the Country Club Village condominiums up the street. We recently asked for a traffic study because pulling off of Ann Arbor Road onto Napier is becoming more and more dangerous. Traffic is going rather quickly, and when you sit there and you want to turn on it, if you're coming from Ann Arbor, I can tell you I do that every day, and it does appear pretty dangerous. We're concerned that if you now increase the traffic for all of the additional houses, it will get much harder to get in and out of our neighborhood. My house, to get into the development where I am at, there's only 300 feet from Ann Arbor Road. The thought of hundreds of additional cars coming in and out, I don't even know how we would get out of our subdivision. And we only have one way in and out, and that is onto Napier. So traffic is a major concern. We had a traffic study done about a year ago, and it showed it was not enough for a light, but I'm quite certain if you did this, you would see you need a light at Ann Arbor. The other concern I have is there isn't a turning lane to get into or to get onto Ann Arbor Road. Instead, people will go over beyond the white lane because the cars behind you want to push you out of the way. If you add all the more traffic, I am quite certain you are going to need a turning lane. Again, all this to me is a big expense in the future. I've already contacted the DEQ because I'm very concerned about the environmental impact. We have Plymouth Lake. We've had some issues with the property as it is. There's a bunch of additional silt coming in because of runoff. I contacted Johnson Control a number of years ago. They came out, they set up some barriers. They saw where there was a lot of overflow of dirt coming in, and it's really done a lot of damage to our lake. DEQ assured me if this would go forward, that there would be a study by the DEQ, not only of the impact that the current development would have on this beautiful vacant land, but on any surrounding wetland. And we have to protect, we have, I don't know, tens and tens of acres of wetland, including Plymouth Lake. We've got just a bunch of open space, but everything would drain underneath Napier into Plymouth Lake. We would insist that any damage from this, we would be reimbursed. We spend thousands of dollars every year to protect Plymouth Lake. I would want some assurance that there would be some study as to the condition of our wetlands now, and if there's damage going forward forever, because we have covenants in place that we have promised to protect the wetlands. And I'm very concerned that this is going to add a big burden on our subdivision and do a lot of damage to the wetlands. I don't know if you've been out there where this land is, but there's sandhill cranes, there's all sorts of birds and deer. There's a lot of wetland there, and when this study's done, I know that our homeowners association would like to add comment to that and have our wetland looked at so there isn't damage. We are just across the street. If I could block it and not get into our lake, I would love to, but all of this goes along the Rouge River. We're very conscientious of protecting the wetland. And like I said, we spend thousands of dollars a year to do that. Also worried about the setbacks. As I said, all of our property, we have a minimum of an acre. I looked at how narrow these houses are and how close they are to the street. I'm concerned that that is going to be different than all of the houses around there, and that that is going to affect the property values of our houses across the street. Also concerned at the need. I've looked over some of these studies. This is an awful lot of houses. I know that things ebb and flow, but I'm concerned if you take this big chunk of land, are you going to develop in pieces? Or are you going to have like where you go to Northville and Novi, we've got all these developments that got started, then people just left, and now you've got what looks like just a mess because you've got a few houses and then just a bunch of vacant lots. So when I look at this, it looks like there's different types of houses that will be built in different locations. Are you going to require that the one is built to a certain extent before you can start another? Or are you just going to start all over the place? To me, this is a big project that I think will do a lot of damage to wetland. I would strongly urge that we look at how many houses are there, how big the lots need to be, and what it's going to do to the surrounding neighborhood. Because in my opinion, it's going to add more of a mess than it's going to help anything. Houses are too close on top of each other. The traffic's going to be a mess. You've got a bunch of wetland that I urge you to look very closely. Go out there. I've lived there 7 years. I've seen an enormous amount of nature there. I live right next to Plymouth Lake. My house is in front. I can see the animals go from our pond to over there at different times. I know that there's a bunch of wetland there. I've talked to the head environmental person from Johnson Control when he was there. He was very conscientious about how much of the land could be used for farming and how much had to be set aside. I hope that if this does go forward, that it would be at a much smaller scale, and that you would look carefully at the environmental impact, and again, also across the street at our homeowners association. And look to where you're going to have cars coming in and off of Napier. That's a lot of additional traffic on a road that really isn't built for that much traffic. Also concerned, when our homeowners association was built, all of the homeowners had to pay Napier. When I bought the house, the previous homeowner still had not paid off his debt for the paving of that road. With all that additional traffic, there's already on the sides of the road damage. When that road needs to be repaired, who's going to repair that? Are you going to have this builder set any money aside for that? Are you going to have these homeowners have to bear some of those costs that we had to bear when our property was built? Thank you for your time.
Cindy, I'm
Yes.
sorry, how do you spell your last name?
KLOTS.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may just make a quick comment. The item that was talked about tonight is actually not the hearing, the purpose of our hearing tonight, but it's actually regarding the Salem Springs Southeast project that has been on the Planning Commission agenda in the past. It was on the Township Board agenda earlier this month, and actually I was going to provide a report on that when we get down to reports, to give you an update on where that stood. So,
Okay,
but that project's not actually on our agenda for this evening.
thank you, Randy. Any other comments?
Yeah, I have some issues too. Hello, I'm Davor Zander. I live one block down the road over here. And I know we have a lot of issues happening here with the dump and everything, but our issue right now is the trucking community, which is Kalo and Jackie's and all the trucks that come through here, through our town, that we've been here forever. Our ancestries go back to the 1940s over here to this corner. I own this little clothing shop over here on the corner, which the guy, he can't even open up the doors in the summertime because there's so much dust, okay? Our issue, and also my wife too, she likes to work outside, and our other family members, my uncle here, and other cousins over here, and our other neighbors, we all live on this side of Chubb Road, which is just a block down. And the dust that comes from Chubb Road, the south side of Chubb Road, from Kalos, that needs to be paved. Because you guys don't, the county doesn't spray until May 18th, I believe, or something like that. In the meantime, you know, we've had issues with Kalo, who own the trucking company, and they said that they'd be liable if they were to spray the road, so they can't do nothing about that. So, it's a major, major concern right now for us who are still here in town, who've been here and residents here forever. If we can reroute the trucks, if they can take 5 Mile, and come down from there instead of taking 6 Mile and coming right through town, you know, it's a lot of dust in the summertime, and it's just gonna keep getting worse, you know. They're just gonna keep creating cells over there at the dump. It's just a matter of time until 6 Mile's closed off, and they're gonna just continue to dump across the street and just, you know, shut it down. And our property values, my taxes went up, I don't know why. And that's a major concern, living, you know, just a stone's throw away from the dump. And, you know, you gotta bring that up with the trust, with whomever, but, there's a lot of concerns on that. It's a big trucking community, it's getting worse. It's getting a lot worse. And we need to do something about the dust on this road and on Chubb Road.
Can we
Appreciate that.
yeah.
Davor Zander, D-A-V-O-R, Zander, Z,
C-A-N or?
D-E-R, yeah.
Okay.
This we can open our door and throw the garbage through the door and end it in the landfill. That's how close we are. You can laugh, or whatever you want.
And, you know, we understand, and
I've been living there for 43 years in Salem. And I never see the smell so bad. I cannot have a grandchildren over. I cannot have, I wish one of those people from the dump. I understand, we gotta have a dump. But if they will come to spend the one night and smell that, we cannot open the windows, we cannot open nothing.
Sir, would you like to stand up and speak
Yeah.
and state your name, please?
Yes, my name is Leonard Basnick, B-A-S-N-E-C.
Okay, thank you, Lynn.
The other is 10093 6 Mile.
Okay.
Well, my problem is, you know, nobody told us when we built the house that they're gonna extend the landfill. If the landfill comes so close, the only thing I think will save us is the power line. Otherwise, if that power line is not there, I could open my door or window and throw the garbage through the landfill.
Yes.
That's all what I can, you know, it's ridiculous. Nobody concerned, like he said, our taxes go up. At least if they will come out and help us to pay the taxes. But we can smell, they smell, and they can pocket the money, and they don't. So that's all that I can say. Thank you.
My name is Michelle Rickards. I am neighbors to these fine folks. And my family's probably closest related to the dump and its effects. Like my neighbor had said, we can't have the windows open. My father-in-law was dying in my house over the summer and I couldn't have the windows open for him. The dust, I have to constantly have an air cleaner in my house. My 7-year-old son that attends school just up around the corner could smell the garbage before he even got off the bus. I have pictures. I watched the dump. I watch how close they are to my house. They are 300 feet dumping garbage. Where do you all live compared to the dump? Are you that close? Do you smell it? Do you have any, does it affect you at all? And then with Xander, do you know how unsafe it is that I live right here on 6 Mile? I have to stand how far back so I can get my son on and off the school bus because the drivers, the garbage truck drivers, drive so fast. It's dangerous. And he has to cross 6 Mile. The bus stops on the other side of 6 Mile. So every day, I have to literally stand in the middle of 6 Mile to make sure that he can get safely on and off the bus. So it would make no sense. It would make sense if you rerouted it so it goes up a 5 Mile. I would love to invite any of you to come and sit on my porch and watch the traffic and listen to the noise. Do you know what time the dump opens in the morning? Because I can tell you. The noise, the clanking of the trucks, the lights. Really, any of you that want to come and I'll make you coffee, you can come and listen to it. What it has done to our family is just beyond irresponsible. And they're just going to expand it. They already told us. We've talked to them. They already told us what their plans are. How would you like that in your backyard? Or actually, it's in our front yard, but how would you like that?
Michelle, what's your address, please?
10201 6 Mile.
I drink decaf.
Perfect. Come on over. I'm up at like 4:30. You guys really need to think about how it affects people in Salem.
Birds.
Oh, yeah.
And all the birds.
The birds. Our neighbors, which run the storage thing, had to put up this obnoxious bird deterrent that all you hear are just these horrible bird noises. I could be in my house with the TV on and hear it. How would you like that in your house? Yeah, or have to wash your car. Or, I'm afraid to let my dog out in the backyard because then all the birds that were over in his area are now in my yard. So now she's eating things that who knows what. And how safe is it for my 7-year-old son? He can't be outside to play. I mean, there's constant garbage in my yard. That's something for you all to think about. And I hope that you're not anywhere close to it, because I would feel bad that you would have to raise a family that way.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Well, shoot. First of all, a suggestion to you. I drove bus in South Lyon for 20-something years. I'm retired. All I do is train people, CDL. They're crossing your young son across 6 Mile. They need to reroute,
Well,
and
for
you need
kindergarten,
to stay on them, because they will reroute.
they did.
You
Now
need to
he's
stay,
in-
I don't care.
Call the
It's
news.
elementary, they need to reroute, because I go down through there.
Can we
They
get
kids
back
out.
to the meeting here and?
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay, that's okay.
I live directly across the street on 6 Mile. My
And your
name
name,
is
please?
Paige Baggett. My address is 9933 6 Mile Road. I have concerns about it all. The dust, the noise, the birds, the traffic. Talks about taking your life in your own hands, try crossing the street to get your mail.
Yeah.
That's really tough because nobody backs down. The noise over there, I take it upon myself and I go directly across the street and I talk to Mr. Kalo. And he's been very open with me. He assures me that he is gonna move his noisemaker crusher on the other side of his property come spring. He assures me that there's gonna be a big berm built up there with pine trees that will stop some of the dust from coming out of where he's crushing this concrete. I hear tail banging 6 o'clock in the morning.
Even on
7.
Sundays.
He assured me that he has wrote numerous notes to his employees that that's gotta stop. I suggest to give him a day off without pay, you know, hit him where it hurts. Anyway, the birds from the dump, oh boy. So I got dust on my vehicles, my house. I have bird doo-doo everywhere. Everywhere. I've lived in this town 17 years. Once in a blue moon, I would smell the dump. Blue moon. The wind had to be coming a certain way and that was it. Now, it started about 2 weeks ago. I got home from work and it was terrible. The next day, it was terrible. It's been terrible ever since. So I don't know what's going on, but it is bad. And my taxes went up. I live right here in the town, and I don't feel sometimes you guys are thinking about these people in this little area here or anywhere else. I have 5 acres. I probably couldn't give my house away right now. And that's really bad because it's a cute little piece of property. But with everything that's going on and the traffic, they're tearing up the road, you know? And a lot of the dust is because the road is so bad through there. So they're riding on the dirt. So that's flying up and what's going on across the street and the traffic. Pave some of these roads, get some of it off of a main drag. You've got to have money from the dump. Let's do something with it, you know? So, that's my concern. You got my name, address, and my phone number? I can fill you in on a daily report. Okay? Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Really? Get on them.
Any other comments? Okay, with that, we will close the public comment session. Correspondence. So correspondence, we received the Charter Township of Plymouth draft master plan for land use and planning and zoning news for November 2014. Okay. Next, public hearings. (15-001) advanced disposal, amend existing conditional use. I make a motion to open.
Right, yeah, you should have a motion and a roll call vote to open the hearing, and then later another motion and roll call vote to close the hearing. And my suggestion would be, after you open the hearing, would be to invite the applicant to make a presentation first.
I move that we open the public hearing for 15-001, advanced disposal, amend existing conditional use. Do I, a roll call?
It should be a roll call.
Roll call, okay.
Yeah, just note the time of the minutes, it then starts.
We'll open it at 8:05. All those in favor?
It should be a roll call vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got my list here, my words aren't coming out right. To open the public hearing.
Should this be in a motion form, to open the public hearing? Should have a first and a second on it, and then?
This motion, we need a second.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'll second the motion.
Augie, are you taking notes or am I still taking notes?
Well, Madam Chair, if you like, I'll start.
I would appreciate it, thank you.
As Ann will back me up. with
I'm sure she will.
Flower pen over there.
She's on it, okay. Okay, so we have a motion to open the public hearing. Daniel seconds it. Roll call vote. Your list of the. You wanna-
Augie Fernandez, yes. Bart? Yes. William?
Yes. Did you say my name?
Yes.
Yes.
Darrell?
Yes.
TJ?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Okay. The motion passes. 8:06. We will open it, or we would like to invite representative from Advanced Disposal.
He's talking to the microphone. Big guns.
Okay, this one's on?
Green link.
Yes. My name's Arnie Gellermans. I'm with Midwestern Consulting. We are working with Advanced Disposal on the proposal here to move the maintenance building. I guess a little bit of history is that the area north of 6 Mile Road, about 15 years ago or so, the compost facility was sited there under a conditional use permit. And then there's scales, and there's also on the north side of the road, there's an existing building here which is rather old. It's, I think it's referred to as the old meatpacking plant. That's where the proposed facility is gonna go. The existing maintenance building is north of 6 Mile Road. It's immediately north of the landfill. The landfill has developed to a point where the maintenance building needs to be moved. The new cell construction, as it moves north, will take that building out sometime during 2015. So our proposal to the township is to allow us to move it where the meatpacking plant is. We would remove the building. The building pad itself would be lowered. The area, you drive off the road into the compost area, the grade drops off significantly. The building pad would be lowered because this building is taller. So basically it would just push down behind the existing berm and behind the existing landscaping. And the access would be this new entrance that was put in a few years ago. That would be the access to the maintenance building. We're not adding any employees. It's basically taking the existing building, moving it over, so there's really no increase in traffic. Same number of employees, same number of deliveries, so there'll be no change there. We're working with the county for a septic permit, a new well, the road commission just getting their approval. This is a change in use of the driveway. It was approved, that driveway was approved for compost and for the soil hauling that has been going on. Now it'll be used for the maintenance building. We're working with the drain commissioner. All the water here will flow to this low area that's down here, so it will not be flowing off-site. The schedule is probably sometime in the spring, so after approval here, we would remove the building, lower the pad, and start construction of the new facility. And then shortly after that, the old facility would come down as well.
How many more cells are they putting in?
Okay, now I think it's, the public comment portion
okay.
is over for
Okay.
right now.
Okay.
And I'm sure that our commissioners will have plenty of questions, but first,
Actually,
we will,
we first should have the public hearing, public comments regarding the hearing. And what I would suggest would be, just make sure to remind everybody to address the chair.
Okay.
And the commissioners can ask, you can ask questions later on.
plenty of questions, and I think we should, for now, keep the questions that pertain to the issue. Right.
Well,
I know you'll have a lot of
Yeah.
questions about other things, and I know they're very important to you. They're important to all of us, but we only have tonight.
I have a question. While you're doing that, because that will, is
I'm
Right.
sorry, could you repeat your name again?
Michelle Rickert.
Michelle. Okay, thanks.
Are you gonna close 6 Mile? Because the last time that you guys did some work on 6 Mile, it just kind of sprung up with barriers and we weren't aware of that you were doing it.
No, the 6 Mile will not be closed.
And what about the traffic that's going across there now? That's not gonna change, or,
The traffic, the approval for hauling soil from the south side of the road to the north side of the road that occurs during the summertime, that is no different.
okay, well, that's,
That
it's
will-
not just during the summertime, you guys have trucks going across there all day long. I travel that at least twice a day, and you have those big monster trucks that don't pay attention when there's traffic coming down 6 Mile.
They're hauling compost over to the landfill.
So you don't have an answer for that one.
No, I do not know how many trucks cross the road each day.
Then maybe you should check. Because
Okay,
it's
just-
dangerous. It's dangerous for anyone that's driving down 6 Mile. And if you guys are moving structures across the street, then you need to be able to protect the citizens that drive that.
Because if it's the maintenance building,
Can
Chris
we
Rickert, by the
do
way.
one at a time, please?
Chris Rickert, by
Chris
the way,
Rickert, okay.
15-year resident, closest resident to the dump. So your maintenance building's gonna work on the D19 bulldozers and everything else, so they'll be crossing 6 Mile now, along with the giant dump trucks and the compost and everything else that we have to worry about every time we go up and down the road.
Because they don't pay attention to the traffic that's on 6 Mile.
Okay, I guess I can only address the addition or the change in traffic, okay? Would be the employees and deliveries would, instead of going north on 6 Mile, they would go south into this facility. Nothing else would change.
No, they're gonna go into the
You're
north
around
side.
Okay, I'm sorry,
North.
flip flop. It would just be going the other direction. Okay, so right now they're going to the maintenance facility on the south side, now they would go to the maintenance facility on
That's
the north side.
deliveries, but that maintenance facility is to maintain equipment.
Correct.
So now we're gonna have bulldozers crossing the street, and we're gonna have fuel trucks, and we're gonna have the 9 million other trucks that drive around that dump that pay no attention to traffic whatsoever, including the security guard, by the way.
Okay. There will be, the tracked vehicles would be brought across or brought to the facility on a lowboy. The tracked vehicles cannot cross the road. Rubber-tired vehicles can cross the road, but not tracked vehicles. And yes, there will be a few, there's not one vehicle, again, the change in traffic, the number of vehicles going from the landfill to the maintenance facility for maintenance is not a lot, okay? I think you're talking about other traffic. That's daily traffic, operational traffic. I'm just addressing the maintenance facility itself. It only has 3 bays to it. There can't be that many vehicles there. And they usually stay in the facility for several days at a time.
Any other questions regarding moving the building to the north side of the road? Yes, sir. If you could state your name, please.
Al Garrett, live on the north, my property is adjacent to the compost property. And I don't have no concern with moving the maintenance building, I'm just wondering what the future of that parcel is. That's all, as far as, they got these huge berms up around it now.
Yeah, we don't have that right now. We have our agenda that we're focusing on, and there are different roles within the township. the board of trustees and all that, but right now, we've been tasked with, the new building.
Yeah, well, I don't
And
oppose
so-
that, but.
Right, and it
Yeah.
sounds like there are a lot of concerns. This meeting is probably not to address those concerns, but as a collective group, it sounds like it may need to be addressed.
Thank you.
Meeting.
Any other public concerns with the building? Okay. Do I have to close something, or do I?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
At 8:16.
We need a second.
Second. Sure, our commissioners have some questions.
And it should be, you'll need a roll call vote for that.
Okay. So do I restate the closing of the public hearing? Okay. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing portion of the advanced disposal amend existing conditional use? Do we have a second?
Yes.
Okay. And a roll call vote?
Yes. Bart? Yes. William?
Yes.
Darrell?
Yes.
TJ?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes.
Hope you don't mind me informalizing it without last names. Yeah.
Now I move to the commissioners, right? Daryl?
Can I start?
Yes, let's open it up for discussion.
Okay. I'm confused now. Are we moving a building or building a new building?
We are building a new, small.
Okay, I'm looking at this picture, and I can't see where you guys are talking, because I can't see that well up there, it's not that dark. Where's the new building going? You know,
Can I quickly look at your photo here? Okay.
is this the office building, the White House?
This is the office building. The existing building.
Oh, it's not in this picture, okay.
So this building is the one that's being removed.
Okay, and new one, that's the place, okay.
What did you say? Could you share that with all of us, please?
Let me see.
Okay.
See that? This is the landfill office building.
Yes.
This is the compost facility. The existing building is over here, north of 6 Mile, or south of 6 Mile, sorry. And this is the existing meat packing plant.
Right.
That's gonna be removed. And that's where the new maintenance facility will go.
I'm sorry, it's getting difficult to hear with all the different
This is
conversations.
the building that's being removed. Right. So the existing maintenance building is here. This is just a beginning. This is the building to be removed, and the new building will go here.
This remains the entrance to the composting facility?
The existing one is here.
Is everyone all set with the picture? Okay. So, Daryl,
Do you have any idea of the length of construction it's gonna take before you can get, is this gonna be a straight pole barn type building, the cement floor?
It is, it's a metal building. So I think trying to remember what the architect said, probably about 4 to 5 months for construction.
Size?
We've actually proposed it in 2 phases. I would have to look at the size. It's 11,700 square feet, but the first phase is,
So 120 or 160.
right, it's a little bit smaller than that. The second phase would be sometime in the future to add an additional bay to it. But the ultimate size would be 11,700 square feet.
Block and steel?
I think it's all steel. I'm sorry, the lower section may be block, but then it's a steel construction.
Okay, so 11,600?
11,700.
Yeah, on the face of it, it's a pretty simple concept in my mind of talking about moving a building from the south side of the road to the north side of the road. But after listening to the neighbors in terms of what concerns them, I'm going to one of the comments the consultant made in his report, where it says under B2, the operator should be responsible for ensuring that 6 Mile Road right-of-way area shall remain free of building dirt and debris from vehicle crossings. And one of the complaints I heard tonight was the dirt and debris on 6 Mile. So if we're moving the building and the vehicles will be going across the road to the north side, how do you intend to keep that dirt and debris off of 6 Mile?
That is a maintenance issue that is part of the permit for 6 Mile, for crossing 6 Mile Road. And I guess, John, if you can address, they have to clean it.
Well, what they're referring to is the dirt crossing the road. It's the dirt along the road from the trucks and cable. It has nothing to do with this.
No, it says for debris from vehicle crossings.
Yeah.
Well,
We
the
clean it.
vehicle crossings aren't along the road, they're at the gateways of the two,
We clean it.
how do you clean it?
And we have a sweeper.
The sweeper? How often is that done?
Once a month, as needed.
Well, we have more traffic crossing.
Well, we won't have more traffic crossing. That's what you're not understanding.
Why am I not understanding?
Well, the maintenance building is not part of the operation. The only thing that's ever gonna cross there is when you bring something over to work on,
Right.
which is, maybe once a day, and it has no dirt on it.
It has no dirt on it.
No, it's clean before it's taken across the street.
So there shouldn't be any additional dirt.
No, it shouldn't be any more than there is right now.
What is being cleaned before it's brought across the street right now?
Nothing, because there's nothing over there to take it over.
Okay, the way you stated it sounded like it was currently happening, okay.
Also, our operation is changing where a lot of our equipment now is leased and will never go across the street.
Because the leasing company is in charge of maintenance?
Yes.
So what vehicles would be, fast forward a year, there's this new maintenance building, what vehicles would be maintained in this building different from what's maintained currently in the existing building?
The bulldozers won't be over there, the larger ones. The compactors won't be over there. It'll be mostly trucks and lawnmowers and site-specific equipment.
Won't be bulldozers,
Yes.
so you're saying the large ones, the 3 axles, the D series.
The D-series, yeah.
Okay, it won't be the spiked steel wheeled.
Oh, you can't, those will never go across the street.
Those are leased?
Those are all leased under JSS, Jobs Solutions of Caterpillar. They actually own the equipment. So we're phasing into that. We now have 5 pieces of their
Yeah, you don't
equipment.
want to depreciate much equipment, do you?
I'm sorry?
You don't want to depreciate equipment.
I have no idea why they do that.
Trust me, it's a good business decision. Okay, so how big is the existing building now?
Oh, you got me on that one. I think it's bigger than this one. I think it's closer to 13 or 14,000 square feet.
And the existing building has things in it like overhead cranes to do heavy equipment work. This would not have that.
What's the height to the break?
27, 28 feet. I'd have to look at the
28 feet to the grade,
To the, you said to the break, what's,
vertical wall.
a vertical wall. Well, I don't have that sheet here. But it's gonna be on the neighborhood of 26, 27 feet, I mean, it has to have it, it's a tall door.
Overall height. Where I'm, here, tell you what, stop. Where I'm going with this is, you got an existing building of an existing height, it's sitting here, you're talking about lowering, dropping the floor, but it sounds like taller buildings going in. I'd like to understand where's the height comparison in existing building to new building being proposed.
In rough terms, the new building is probably 13, 14 feet taller than the existing, but we're lowering the grade by 12 or 13 feet. So it won't be any more visible than what it is now.
You're saying no height difference?
Right.
No altitude difference in existing to what you're saying? Come on.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, the final site plan will have a cross-section through there showing what it looks like, you know, from the road, the berm, the landscaping, what the new building is, and we'll show it compared to the existing building.
All set, Bart,
I can
for
keep
now?
going. I can keep going.
A lot of it, this,
Uh,
okay. I mean, if you wanna keep your numbers.
You talked about watershed.
Yes.
Do you have something that talks about how the water moves now on the property?
Water generally all flows to the low area that's over here in the southeast corner of the site. From this area and from the area around here, pretty much all flows down to that area, and since it's an old gravel pit, it's very porous, it seeps into the ground. It's been doing that for 40 years, since the gravel pit has been there. With the exception of the water off the compost pad. The compost pad water all drains to a pond, which is here, and we can't discharge that, called leachate. That's the semi-technical term for that water. That's recycled or disposed of. So we're working with the Water Resources Commission right now. We've submitted them a plan showing them that we have the room to retain all that water down in that
The words I believe the planning commission will need to see is that here's the current watershed. This is where it goes, this is how much goes where. It is contained, it is controlled thusly. With this, there will be no change.
Okay.
And basically the way, in simplified terms, the way I look at it is, water that's on your property stays on your property.
Right.
You know, if there's X amount running off today, and it's been that way for the last 500 years, that's still okay. But if anything comes along that changes the way the water moves, especially if water moves onto adjoining parcels, whether they're yours or not,
Right.
that is something that you need to be careful.
Right.
Okay?
I wish the Water Resources Commission took a simplistic
Well,
view.
you know, I have to be simple. I have only so much capacity.
No, they're requiring us to show that we have room to store 2 100-year storms back to back down
Yeah,
here.
that's
So,
fine, but, you know.
But I understand
What
what
it
you're
is, you know, do we all of a sudden have problems with something running off the road, water freezing? Do we have something with, you know, oil that's been spilled in the maintenance building? Fine, you know, but now it runs off into a neighbor's farm or something like that. Like, that's where I'm coming at.
saying. Understood.
Yeah, you can go on there, well, so.
Bill, do you have any more questions?
No.
TJ?
Crossed out.
Dan?
I think I heard some comments from the audience, I don't know if I really understood it correctly, but all the talk so far has been talking about the vehicles to be maintained crossing 6 Mile, but you talked about 4 or 5 months of construction. What about the construction vehicles? Now, they're gonna track mud and dirt and everything going across 6 Mile. Is that going to be maintained, 6 Mile gonna be maintained from the construction vehicles going back and forth?
Yes.
Okay, that was never answered, so that was why.
As part of the, to get a building permit, we're gonna have to show a soil erosion control plan and all of that'll be in there, street sweeping, we have to put silt fence around everything, and so that.
So all the hazardous materials, so-called hazardous, are going to be contained on the property?
Okay, but I'm not so sure there's any hazardous materials.
Well, when I say hazardous, I say so-called, I was trying to say, you know, in other words, contaminants, okay? How, is that better?
Yes, nothing is gonna be leaving the site.
Right. Because you talked about you have to do something with the, what, you used the term leafage or something like that?
Leafate.
Leafate, okay,
Yeah.
that water has to be either exposed of or whatever, you can't let that just go off.
Correct. And there's no change to that. That's the way the compost operates now, and this has no impact on the compost operation.
Okay.
Augie, do you have any questions?
Now, you're with Advanced? Oh, okay, so you're representing the company. Has Advanced in any of their other locations ever had a person that worked specifically on community liaison with neighbors?
I couldn't speak to that.
Because one of the things I heard tonight, you heard it as well, and you can't discount that. It certainly may not be germane to what you're doing, but one of the things is wholeheartedly support every business in this community, especially agriculture businesses, but one of the things I want is businesses that are good neighbors as well as good businesses, and what I heard tonight, you know, it probably would behoove Advance to put together some sort of thing with your company and have a community liaison and address things. You know, it's like cleaning a road. It's easier to keep it clean than to get it clean.
Yeah.
If you're only cleaning it once a month, you know, you know what I'm saying. I would really like to see the spirit of the community in all of this. We appreciate what you're doing here, you know, certainly I appreciate it, and I'll go by the letter of the rule. So I'm just editorializing. What I heard here says there's been some lack of communication, and you haven't always been the owner of the facility. Like to see some real positive energy toward the neighbors here. I think your house was built in 1800s, wasn't it?
42.
Yeah, so, you know,
And before Advanced bought the
editorializing,
dump,
okay?
they actually cleaned the road in my house.
And we certainly appreciate that the maintenance of the historic buildings, as I call them, whenever I drive by, I always wish you could move it to my property. Very nice, so, but you still have some work to provide us with the site plan, eh?
Oh, this is only a preliminary
Yeah,
site plan.
right.
The final site plan will have more detail.
When will that be?
We hope to have it in for the February meeting. So we have about probably 7 to 10 days to get it in, so.
Great.
Is-
Yeah.
All set? Okay, thank you. I have just a couple questions to clarify. So the current height of this building is going to be 12, 13 feet taller, but with the lowering of the pad, it negates the issue, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I had a question here, and I think you may have answered it with Bart, is if you're moving it to the other side, I would have thought that most of the equipment is on the dump side as opposed to the compost, but you're saying most of that is on lease or on loan, and so they repair it over there, so you're not, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And as we progress on, all the heavy equipment will be leased.
Okay.
So this garage will only take care of things like our on-site roll-off trucks, our dump trucks, our lawnmowers, garden tractors, pumps.
And why are you moving it?
Because it's gonna be a cell.
The existing garbage is gonna get cut
The
out.
other way of the garbage.
And in reviewing the Stantec report, how, are you?
Yes.
Okay. And the recommendations, sounds like there's still some work to do with other, outside, commissions.
Yes, we're working with the road commission, with the health department, and with the water resources commission.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
If you'd like, I can give you somewhat of a rundown of the process that's being followed here, just to give you an idea of when things are taking place, essentially, in this process.
Okay, I just kind of wanted to bring it up, make sure we're all on track, I guess, you know, because you mentioned February, and I know some things take time. But sure, Ronnie, any insight would be helpful probably to all of us, and then you can review your report.
Okay. The process tonight, as was mentioned, we're looking at amending the existing conditional use permit that the Planning Commission approved in 1995 for the composting center. As far as the process, it's the same as if it's a new permit. That's why we have a public hearing. That's why we're going through the whole process as if it was a new application. But you actually are being asked tonight to consider two related actions. One is to decide whether to amend the conditional use permit to expand the area that to include this new maintenance facility on the north side of 6 Mile. And then the second action is to consider whether or not to approve the preliminary site plan. When we review a site plan, we do it in two parts. The preliminary site plan is intended to be the basic information. Here's the concept of what we want to do, and enough detail to understand that it can work. Some engineering has been taken care of. The basic information is on there to show how the site's going to work, how it relates to the neighbors, how it relates to the road and such. But much of the engineering detail that I think that Mr. Gelderman mentioned actually comes in the next stage. In between preliminary site plan approval and final and submittal of the site plan, that's when actually all these outside agency permits are necessary. That's essentially your action to say the preliminary site plan is acceptable allows the applicant to go out to the county and any other agencies that are involved and work with them to get their approvals. They then would come back to us with the final plans that include the information on those approvals and all the other details, engineering details that need to be on the plans, including details about the landscaping, cross sections of the driveway and pavement area, details about the building. Basically, the items are in the Stantec report, and really the vast majority of the items that are in our report are items that must be on the preliminary site plan. They do not necessarily have to be on the preliminary. They must be on the final site plan. They do not necessarily have to be on the preliminary site plan. So really, both of our reports are essentially a checklist for the next step of this process. But in terms of our report, we did review the application, and we have comments both on the conditional use permit and then on the site plan permit. The conditional use permit, the standards for conditional use permit approval are in sections 63.06 of the ordinance, and we noted them in the chart here. Each of the shaded sections of the chart is the actual language in the ordinance, and we included comments on each one. I'm happy to answer questions about each one. We found in general that this proposal is consistent with the conditional use standards. There are a few areas where there's information that's needed. One of them was answered tonight, which was what is going to happen to the existing facility on the south side of the road. It's clear now that it's going to be removed because the landfill is moving into that area. And we also had comments about the condition of 6 Mile Road itself, and those were also answered tonight, that the applicant has indicated that they do have cleaning activities. We will be asking for those details related to what they do for cleaning, how often, and who is responsible for cleaning. We will be asking that those be on the final site plan, so that if there are problems in the future, we can reference the approved final site plan to get that area cleaned up. But in general, we found that the project is consistent with the conditional use standards. It is also, with one minor exception, consistent with the 13 conditions that were imposed on the composting center in 1995. Most of those 13 conditions were technical, engineering related. And this proposal doesn't affect the composting center operation anyway. The one condition that would need to be changed by the Planning Commission tonight, if you decide to approve this amendment, would be the first condition, which says that the area of the composting conditional use permit, the actual physical boundaries of it, cannot include some property that's zoned agricultural within the area that the landfill operation owns. There are two small pieces of property that were agricultural zoning. I suspect at one time they were owned by somebody else. And this condition was intended to say simply that the composting center cannot expand beyond its current operating boundaries. The proposal would expand the land area, but it would not expand the composting operation. And so what we've suggested in our report at the end, on the last page of our report, we have three suggested conditions. And the first one is to amend that 95 condition number 1 to simply state that an exception, that is to accept to provide land area for the accessory maintenance facility to serve the landfill and composting operation. It wouldn't change the composting itself, wouldn't expand it in any way. It simply allows the land area for this facility to operate. And so with that, we feel that the proposal is consistent both with the 1995 action and with the standards that are in place today. And we're comfortable in recommending that the Planning Commission, that the preliminary site plan is ready for Planning Commission action tonight, with the expectation that additional details will be provided on the final site plan.
Bill?
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that the conditional use permit approval go forward. Incorporating by reference items 1, 2, and 3 on page 5 of the recommendations from our planners. I'll read those, which are incorporated by reference in this motion. All conditions of the 717 conditional use permit approval for the composting facility in parcel A 0112-400-003 shall remain in effect with the exception of condition 1 that is hereby altered as to read as follows. The parcel for the composting facility shall not include the 2 parcels zoned as AR along 6 Mile, except to provide land area for an accessory maintenance facility to serve the landfill and composting operations. 2, the landfill operator should be responsible for ensuring the 6 Mile road right-of-way area shall remain free of a buildup of dirt and debris for vehicle crossings. And the conditional use permit approval is contingent upon preliminary and final site plan approval of the proposed development per Article 64.0 of the site plan review.
Second.
Darrell gave the second to the motion. Bill.
Can we open up some discussion now? Again?
Yes.
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 Could you clarify for me something on this boundary sheet? What is the boundary that is permitted by the composting operation? Is that this line here? Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
That is what you're interested in. But it is a separate parcel. This is overall.
They're gonna drop it down.
What is, what would prohibit advance from putting the building on existing common property right now, and not going off, going outside? Yeah. What if anything would prohibit advanced disposal from putting the building on existing composting property and not moving into this AR zone piece of property?
There's just no space. The existing, legal description of the conditional use is pretty much all taken up by, the compost pad, the finishing pad, the pond, scale house, and an access road. There's really no room on there. You might be able to put it down here somewhere, but it's in a low area then. But it's really, there is no room to put it.
You would take away from the existing composting space.
Correct.
And this building is, you said 11,000, so it's
11,700. Roughly 86 by 86.
And this piece of property here is a separate piece of property. It has its own parcel number or something at this
Yes.
point? Or it's a portion of?
Right, it's, that property that's zoned AR is a separate parcel with its own parcel number.
It's a separate parcel with its own parcel number.
Correct.
So you're gonna be accessing this parcel through another parcel.
Correct.
You aware of what needs to be done in this township to access one parcel through another parcel?
Both the parcels.
If you'd like, I can answer it.
Yeah.
The applicant in this case owns the entire land area there, and it is in several pieces. The applicant has the option, if they choose to combine them.
Yes.
And that is an administrative process. They could do that whatever time they choose to. But in terms of our project tonight, because it's entire landholding, it's treated by the zoning ordinance as one tract essentially. So we don't need to have it combined for our purposes, but the applicant can choose to.
It's just, there has to be a handshake between the two parcel documents saying that, you know, like, even though they're the same owner, one owner has to sit there and say, yes, I grant this owner access through my parcel, and this one sits there and says, this guy I know allows and gives me access to it, even though they're the same person. The documents have to go, because you have to look at it as if it ever were to be split, the new owner of this parcel can't all of a sudden lose the right to access it through what has already been existing. That's just, been there, done that. Okay, so this is AR, but they couldn't be combined, could they be combined if they were separate zonings?
Yes.
If one was zoned into one parcel, then you'd have a dotted line going through it saying, oh, by the way, this portion is AR and this part is commercial industrial, or?
Yes, the zoning and the parcel lines, just because the zoning district is different doesn't mean they have to keep the parcels separate.
They pay the higher tax rate of the two?
That's addressed by the assessor. The assessor has to figure out how to take care of it. What I will say, one thing to keep in mind is that, you asked earlier, could they put the proposed maintenance building within the existing compost area that's already been approved for conditional use permit? They still would have had to come to you to amend the conditional use permit. This is a landfill. This has been here for many years. The composting operation's been in existence for quite a long time. But all of it's based on the conditional use permit approval. And so any change to that, any new facilities, they would have had to come back to you anyway for the same process.
They're just asking for it to be in this area that's set off. Obviously, there's some convenience, there's some revenue advantages to it.
Okay, if I can address one thing.
Sure.
We probably, or in all likelihood, are going to be filing a request to combine all these parcels into one. And it's mainly revolved around the septic. With the health department, we dug test pits for the septic for the new building. And as it turns out, the place where they approved is not on the same parcel. And the county health department requires the septic field to be on the same parcel as the building. So we are going to, since the landfill owns all the property north of 6 Mile, and we're not going to do it all, but the whole eastern half, just combine it into one parcel so we don't run into this. We'll still have zoning you know, there'll be pieces of different zoning, there still will be a conditional use permit, legal description. The only thing that's different is it'll all be combined into one parcel.
So part of any further review of them meeting requirements would be showing where this septic field is in relation to the building, showing it's on the same property. I'm sure that
It's
was
a final site plan.
notice and all those things.
Final site plan, and in order for us to get a permit, we have to show that they're on the same parcel.
What color do you want the building to be? Don't say neon orange.
Probably gray.
Augie, any questions?
No.
Dan?
All set.
Okay.
Any vote on the motion should be a roll call vote.
Motion is to approve the conditional use permit, subject to these conditions that Bill mentioned. Yeah, okay.
Okay. All my questions have been answered. And all the details communicated. Okay. If there isn't any more discussion, then we'll take a roll call vote on.
Madam Chairman, if I may, this is through you to Augie. Augie, I think the roll calls should be by last name for record purposes. These are part of the official legal records of the township, so we shouldn't just go by first names, we should go by last names.
No problem.
Okay.
Great.
I defy you to name another part that you know.
What's that? Yeah. Ready to take the vote? Fernandez, abstain. Khan? Approved.
Hold on.
If I may, I apologize. There was an earlier abstention, and I made a note to comment on it. I was going to do that towards the end. I want to make the commissioners aware of the, before this continues, of the process for abstentions. An abstention should only be made where there's a conflict of interest on the part of the commissioner. And that conflict of interest is described in the bylaws. The process for deciding whether it's conflict of interest is actually not the commissioners to decide. The commissioner, before a vote is taken, in fact, quite frankly, before the matter is discussed, the commissioner should bring up that potential conflict of interest, which is then discussed by the rest of the commission, and actually the rest of the commission votes to decide whether or not an actual conflict exists. And only in that case should somebody abstain, and they should then abstain by stepping down for the entire period of the discussion.
My abstention, Madam Chair, was because I wasn't here on the board for those minutes that were being approved, so I had to abstain. It wasn't conflict of interest. It wasn't part of the board.
But, right, and I'm not criticizing that abstention, you reminded me to mention this.
Okay.
But I'll mention it now because this is an item, a business item,
Yeah.
and so the only reason to abstain on this vote would be if you had a conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So that being said,
Therefore, all approved.
This is, yes,
Can
approved.
approve.
The next step is the tough one.
Lawson?
This is okay.
Lawson?
Yes.
Yes.
Lewandowski?
Yes.
McLaughlin?
Yes.
Merlot?
yes.
Gregary?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
How many times have you guys joked about building a bridge?
Okay, next on our agenda,
Madam
old
Chair.
business item. Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
apologize. You do actually have two items. You had a vote on the conditional use permit. You do also need to have a separate motion on the preliminary site plan. And I know it feels like you already did that, but actually what you approved was the conditional use permit side of it.
We need another motion for the site plan.
A motion on the preliminary site plan.
Madam Chair, I move approval of the preliminary site plan.
second? So now we open it up for discussion.
Right, and if I may just make one suggestion.
Certainly.
My suggestion would be that any motion on the preliminary site plan should cite the two reports, and you can simply reference them as conditions, include that the items in these two reports be addressed on the final site plan.
Madam Chair, may I amend my motion?
Of course.
I want to incorporate by reference in that motion, the Stantec report of January 16th, 2015, which becomes part of the motion, and the conditional use permit report from Mr. Pennington, no date on that report.
It's dated
January 13th.
Oh, sorry, January 13th, 2015.
Thanks, Mr. Lawson. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
You'll second that. Now we open for discussion. Daryl?
I have no question. Nothing. I'm okay with it. I'm all set.
All set?
You guys got
Augie?
set?
Augie?
I
Bart?
asked them before, that's fine.
Okay. I don't have any questions either. So now we take a vote. Take a roll call. If there's no further discussion.
Fernandez, yes. Khan?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes.
Lewandowski?
Yes.
McLaughlin?
Yes.
Merlot?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Old business items, none. Reports of commissioners or committees. Rodney, do you have anything to report?
I do. I can report on the Salem Springs project, Salem Springs Southeast project. This is the proposed development that is in the southeast corner of the township in what we call the M14 Gottfredson Road Urban Service Area. It's a proposal for, I think we're about 558 homes, 558 dwelling units proposed. It actually has come down as part of the conversation with the township board that the number that the planning commission saw last summer was up in the 580s, I believe, 581 if I recall correctly. And the board has
What was the number, Rodney? Didn't get the number, the new number?
I believe it's 558, and it's about evenly split between single-family homes and what they're calling detached condos that look like single-family homes, but they're not in individual lots, and then a small number of townhouse units. I believe around 58, I think, townhouse units. The project has been before the board for a number of months. The board had a number of questions and gave direction to the developers of that project, and some adjustments were made, mostly in detail. These were adjustments in the number of larger single-family lots, reduction in the number of 70-foot wide lots, for example, and an increase in the number of 90 and 110-foot wide lots, which was the primary reason why the number of dwelling units came down. The board also was looking for fewer townhouse units and more of those detached condo units. Ultimately, the project came before the board again in January. The board had decided to hold another public hearing on it, so there were a number of additional comments that were made at that meeting. But at the January meeting, the board did adopt the rezoning ordinance and approved the area plan for this project. So the rezoning has been approved and is, at this point, is now in effect for that site. It's been rezoned to PUD, and the area plan is in effect for that site. The applicants are working on the issues that they need to work on to come back to you for preliminary site plan approval. I don't have any kind of a timeline on that. I have not heard anything about when they might submit it. They are also in conversations with some of the other property owners in the urban service area about providing water and sewer service, working together to finance water and sewer service to the bulk of the urban service area. As I said, those discussions are also ongoing and will essentially parallel any review process that we see. But at this point, that's the state of the project, and it will eventually be coming back to you for the preliminary site plan approval.
I think they have 1 year to get all the parties together on the water and sewer, is that correct?
Thank you, that is correct. One of the conditions that the board put on this project is that the board would like to have a development agreement in place that addresses how water and sewer will be financed, a plan for that the board can accept and sign. And as part of the board's action on the rezoning, they put in a condition that the developer and any other interested property owners in the urban service area basically had 12 months to come back to the township with an agreement that the township can also accept for how the water and sewer will be financed. If that does not happen, then essentially the project would go back to square one. The rezoning would revert back to its existing zoning, or previous existing zoning, and a future project has to start over again.
You're saying financing, so who's paying for it?
Well, that is the question. Of course, our master plan is very specific, and the board was equally specific that the township cannot be put in the position of being liable for the cost. The estimates for water and sewer vary somewhat. The township engineers have put together an estimate for providing water and sewer to the urban service area at it's about $20 million. The developers have suggested a smaller number. That's an argument. It's an engineering argument that will be worked out. But the question is, how is that to be financed? The township will have to play a role as the local government that's involved, but the board has made it clear that any financing mechanism has to put the township in a position of being held harmless, essentially, that it will be privately financed.
Bill?
Madam Chair, to this consultant, help me and the audience out. You got M14, you got Godfrey's. In terms of northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest, which corners are we talking about?
Well, that's a good question. You're right, because the freeway divides the urban service district almost in two equal parts, not quite equal. The master plan for this urban service area has been consistent all along for related utilities. The language of the master plan says that any utilities have to be sized to serve the entire area. That was part of this project, and part of the conversation with the board was that to make it clear that we're not just looking for water and sewer service for this one project in the southeast corner of the urban service area. We're looking for facilities that will ultimately be able to serve the entire area.
So your initial objective is the southeast corner where the water and sewer are going.
The first development project to come in is the southeast corner. The idea is that whatever utilities come in have to be properly sized and have the proper capacity to serve the entire area.
And that's what I'm getting at. Is the northeast corner part of that area?
There are no current development projects in the northeast corner.
Is that part of the
Yes,
services?
it is ultimately part of the service
How
area.
about the northwest? How about the northwest and southwest? Are they part of this area?
Yes, the urban service area essentially centers around the Goffredson Road
So it
interchange.
takes all four corners. Thank you very much. I didn't know
Rodney.
what area that was.
Rodney. Use the map.
Actually, this map actually includes more than just the urban service area, but it can give you somewhat of an idea. You know, Napier, North
South
Territorial.
side of Territorial, am I correct?
That's right, yeah.
South side of Territorial, and then north side of Joy.
Are you just talking about Salem Springs, or is Sarlin and WCY included too?
Salem Springs,
Other properties gonna be sold along Alfredson Road, but they're part of the USB.
Okay, thanks.
Rodney, I think for clarification purposes, it is basically the southeast corner is the proximity where the majority of this housing is going in. And that is, you know, even though it's referred to as, you know, Godfredson and North Territorial, it's really basically Plymouth Road, Joy Road, or Ann Arbor Road, Joy Road, and Napier Road.
now, we really have two things we're talking about here. One is the specific development project.
Salem Springs.
Salem Springs. And that is the project that's taking in this green box right here, plus this little piece that's not being developed, and this little piece that's going to be developed with a few homes. And there's a road right-of-way that already exists to connect across. So this is Salem Springs, this little green area down the southeast corner here. The overall urban service area, as was said, comes up and comes across North Territorial, cuts down, and also takes in a corner over here off of Joy Road as well. And the intent of the utility plan, the township engineers have completed a utility study in 2007 that looked at what would it cost and what kind of capacities would be needed to serve the entire urban service area that's defined in the master plan. And that 2007 plan will be what any project, any improvements will be based on, capacity-wise, size of the pipe, location of improvements. All that will be based on being able to ultimately serve the whole urban service area. Now, it won't be all built at once. Obviously, it will be built as projects come in and need it. But the idea is that the capacity will be there from the beginning to serve the whole urban service area.
Why would they want to build in excess capacity for land they're not developing?
That's a great question. The developers, of course, don't want to. But we've made it clear in our master plan, made it clear in the utility plan, that this has to be sized properly and that the capacity has to be available at the beginning. It has to be available to serve the whole.
Is there a clawback to them from other developers later on?
Well, that's what this process, this development agreement process will be about. This is the discussion that's going on. There are a number of large property owners. So this map is really about the large property owners and what are their land holdings. Now, in some cases, the land holdings are not necessarily in the urban service area. I believe some of this land is outside of it, if I recall correctly. But essentially, these large landholders are having a conversation about how can we finance this, with the idea that they may have development projects of their own that are planned. We simply haven't seen yet. They have ideas that they may be presenting. We've had now 2 applications for other sites that have come in. So far, both of which have been incomplete. They've not been presented to you because they're simply not ready to even move ahead. But 2 other sites have proposed at least a rezoning application.
We don't decide whether or not these properties should be developed or the zoning or anything else. That's beyond our purview, right, as a planning commission.
Well, actually, it is absolutely your place to decide whether or not it's ready.
We do.
See, you have a master plan that looks long range. This document was last updated in 2009, and it looks 10 to 20 years out. What do we want our township to be like 10 to 20 years from now? And this plan is based on past plans. There's been a history of long-range plans in the township, and the planning for this corner of our township has been consistent for many years now, that this is the area, if we're going to have development that's served by public utilities, more of an urban or suburban scale, that it is in this corner of the township that should take place. The idea is that by having it here, we can then tell folks that own land over here elsewhere, own land off of 7 Mile, or own land off of 5 Mile. That is an area that's intended to remain rural. We have an area that's planned for more urban development if there's a need. And we're seeing now that there is beginning to be a need for this type of development. But that plan is essentially the guiding force behind the decision making. But it is still your job as a planning commission to decide as each project may come in, each application comes before you, is it, or essentially, is this right? Is it now ready to make this change? And the planning commission decided last summer, that this was ready to go and recommended approval of the rezoning for this project. But each project that comes in will have to go through that same process in coming forward.
Rodney, I don't know, one of the big concerns was, and it's always concerned with them, is traffic. So we were talking, and it was still too early for that. Is there any discussion on traffic or patterns or traffic studies or any of that in the works now?
That's a great question. The traffic study, what's called in the ordinance an impact assessment, is required as part of this next stage. So when you see the preliminary site plan, they will also provide a detailed impact assessment that will address traffic as one of the impacts, but also look at impacts on natural features. It was comments about wetlands. They're going to need to address that, and any other impacts that may come out of this site, this proposed development, noise, light, other things. But the main ones really are going to be impacts on natural features and impacts on traffic patterns. The road commission is going to require that traffic study. We also require it, so it will be coming to you as part of that preliminary site plan.
And so the impact is not just a Salem Township, but it's the surrounding areas too, correct?
That's right. The traffic study looks at all the intersections that might be affected by this project. So it's going to be looking at intersections not only in our community, but in Superior Township and also to the east in Wayne County. And there's always the potential for changes that are needed. The one resident mentioned the need for a traffic light in Hanover Road and Napier Road. And so that's something the traffic study would be looking at. Is that warranted? Is there a need for a flashing yellow at these local intersections along Napier where the roads line up with the developments in Plymouth Township? Those will all be looked at as to whether or not if those changes are warranted. But if they are, the County Road Commission can mandate them. We simply request the study, but ultimately it'll be the County Road Commission that will decide what improvements are needed.
These studies now will be running concurrent with the, trying to work out an agreement on financing the water and sewers. I would assume now that they have a conditional go-ahead on the zoning and everything, that they'll also be, this will be part and parcel of getting things together for a final site plan. Would that be correct?
The developer can go ahead and present information to you. What the board's action essentially said was the developer will not be able to do anything with this site until that agreement is in place. But they, at their own risk, can go ahead and pursue the site plan review process. So they may or they may not. They may go ahead and put all their energy into the development agreement and water and sewer financing and get that in place, and then move ahead. Or they may, if they have a timeline that they want to take the risk, they can present the preliminary site plan package to you while that other process is also being pursued.
Is this water Detroit, Ypsilanti, or self-contained?
Right now, the agreement, the board's action says it's going to be coming from another utility company. There are no plans to do either sewer treatment or community wells on the site.
Are there only two?
Those options are all on the table at the moment. Where they come from is up to them. I will tell you that we are aware that Detroit Water has a line that stops at Napier and Hanover Road. And of course, Plymouth Township has water lines on Napier and sewer lines as well. Yucca does not have any sewer lines that come this far, but my understanding is that the sewage treatment plant in Ypsilanti Township has the capacity to provide service to the site if the lines were run. So we'll have to see. There's no other decision on that, but those are options all on the table.
When you say the site, that's the whole site, Yucca can handle it?
Remember, that's in all aspects of this. We're talking about whatever comes in has to have capacity to serve the whole urban service area.
Question. Years ago when JCI owned the property, and they were planning, I know there was gonna be 5,000 vehicles there. Did they ever get to the point that they did a traffic impact study on what that many vehicles would do in there?
They did, actually. JCI, this was actually a question that the Salem Springs Southeast developers were asking about right from the beginning. Can we use their studies? And in fact, some of their studies you saw, the results of their studies anyway. On the area plan, there was some pretty substantial information about wetlands and woodlands and other natural features that were, it was a sort of a layer that was underneath the area plan information. It was actually much more information than we require at area plan stage. The reason they provided it is because they already had that information from the JCI project. And so they simply included it there. So they will be able to use some of that natural features data they already have. They need to update it, but they will be able to use that and incorporate that into what they present to you. The traffic study, they were asking, can we just use that traffic study? And essentially the answer that we've given them is that it's essentially useless information. It's a decade old. It's for a completely different land use. And quite frankly, the traffic impacts from these homes may or actually be less than the traffic impacts from the JCI project, because that project had rush hour traffic essentially, whereas this one, the traffic is going to be a bit more spread out. Ultimately, we'll have to see what the study says, but whatever the impacts are, they'll have to address it.
Had they recommended, I mean, because that's a lot of vehicles, that prior traffic study, had they recommended, paving Joy or expanding Goffredson or the pier?
I know there were improvements. I can't tell you right offhand what they were. I'd have to. The study is in my boxes in the office, but I don't recall exactly what was in it. I know that there were improvements that were proposed, and I'm sure that there will be improvements that will be required related to this project. What those exactly will be come out of the study. But I'm sure there will be some things.
Thank you, Rodney. Any other questions for Rodney for that update? No? Okay. Rodney, do you have any update on our master plan update, or is that in a on a different number on our agenda?
Actually, yeah, we were just talking about it. Ann and I were just talking about that before the meeting, that we'd like to include the master plan update on the next meeting agenda, and we'll give you an update. We'll have some more information for you, and go ahead and get that project rolling again. We lost momentum because of the development project, but
Sure.
we can now jump back into that.
All right, moving on. Number 11, approval of minutes, December 15th. Everybody should have received those and reviewed those in advance.
Can I make a motion to approve the December 15th minutes of 2014 as submitted in the draft?
Any second?
I'll second it.
And we can take a voice vote on that? Okay, all those in favor of approving the December 15th, 2014 minutes as submitted, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Abstain. I'm sorry, I abstained earlier when I shouldn't have. Now is the time to abstain. Not the agenda, the minutes, man, that was bad.
That's all right, we're all learning today, aren't we? Okay, thank you. Okay, the minutes, December 15th, 2014 minutes are approved. Reports and announcements. Ann, do you have anything to report? Announcements, I would just like a comment. Is this the right place for it? Okay, I just want to welcome our new people, Augie and Bill. We're glad you're here. We're looking forward to all your input. Welcome everyone back from the holiday.
I'm sorry, I'll be gone next month to Florida. So.
Okay. And I especially appreciate all your patience and support being the new chairwoman. Obviously, I have some room to grow in this position, so thank you for that. What's that?
When's the victory?
Tomorrow. Not tonight. Okay, anyone else?
Okay.
No? Okay, number 12, public comment. Yes.
Ronnie Lewandowski, Pam, I think you do a wonderful job for stepping in there.
Oh, well, thank you, I appreciate that.
Strike that from the record.
Gary put her up to it.
I'm not speaking to him.
Oh. Okay. No more public comment? Okay. Number 13, adjournment. I move that we adjourn at 9:21.